Hello class, my name is Mason Earl, and today I'm going to become an expert on the mythical werewolf in order to teach you some more about its origins, what it stands for, and how it relates to our society in the real world. Some common questions are, well, where did werewolves come from? What even is a werewolf? Well, to answer those, a werewolf is a mythical creature whose idea was first identified in the Epic of Gilgamesh from around 2100 BC. This identification was very early on in the werewolf's existence, and missed a few key features that are seen in the modern-day werewolf. Some of the first examples we see of modern-day werewolves today were found in ancient Greece and Rome. They were found in poetic and philosophical texts. Now, before we go too far into this, I would like to discuss exactly what a werewolf is. By definition, a werewolf is a person who changes into a wolf for a period of time. Think shapeshifting. Typically, this occurrence in the myths is during a full moon. And yes, anybody can be affected by this. Werewolves can transmit saliva through bites, and when mixed with human blood, it causes a process that transforms the human into a werewolf. Now for the big question. Are werewolves monsters? The answer to that is yes. Absolutely, werewolves are monsters. According to the Merriam-Webster dictionary, a monster is an animal of strange or terrifying shape. Well, that's exactly quite literally what a werewolf is. The werewolf is monstrous in other ways than just its shape, though. When people hear the word monstrous, they think of things that are dangerous or harmful, what they fear the most. Being a monster can have much deeper meaning than simply what is on the outside, though. Maybe it makes people feel unsettled by simply hearing the word werewolf. Maybe it sparks rage in others. Really is different for every person. When someone hears the word werewolf, they may think of their sharp teeth or jagged claws. Others may think of their incredible speed or bloodthirsty nature. Everyone thinks different things, but will inevitably come to the same conclusion. Werewolves are monstrous. But there is another question we must ask ourselves. Do werewolves benefit or harm our society today? Now that question may seem like it has an easy answer, but I disagree. Personally, I believe that werewolves do not harm our society. No matter how horrific or monstrous they are, I believe that, ultimately, they have positive influences on our world today. Now, I know some of you may disagree with me, but please hear me out and let me explain why I believe this. Now, real quick, before I tell you exactly why I think werewolves have a positive influence on our society, I would like to talk more about why werewolves came into existence in the first place. One of the earliest mentions of a werewolf can be dated all the way back into Greek mythology. In the legend of Lycaon, it is mentioned that Lycaon, the son of Pelasgus, angered the all-powerful god Zeus. He did this by serving him a poor meal that consisted of remains of an innocent boy who had been sacrificed. This angered Zeus, and in response he turned Lycaon and all of his sons into werewolves. There are plenty of early legends on werewolves. Another one from early Nordic folklore tells its own tale of two werewolves. In the saga of Volsungs, a father and son found pelts of a wolf. These pelts granted them powers to shapeshift into wolves and granted them extreme strength and speed for 10 days. In these 10 days, they went on a killing rampage, targeting everyone in their sight. Eventually, this rampage stopped when the father turned his rampage onto his own son, dealing a fatal blow. In the father's rage, he accidentally hurt someone he truly cared for, and was able to suppress his emotions of rage. While these stories are interesting, there's a deeper meaning behind them. A lot of ancient civilizations like putting creatures behind their problems and emotions. The werewolf is just that. It represents a person's feelings and emotions in a raging beastly form. In the first story, Zeus transforms Lycaon into the beast that represented the emotions he was feeling at the time. That being of incredibly angry and wanting to blow up, really. That was his way of dealing with his emotions. In the saga of Volsungs, it is a little bit different. The pelts of the wolves they found brought out the rage inside of them, the same rage that all of us have inside of us. Well, what exactly do I mean by the rage that's inside of us? Have you ever had the feeling of being so angry that you just need to scream? That you feel like if you hit somebody or something, you'll feel better? It is stronger for some people than others, but all of us eventually have this feeling of hatred or anger. While we all have these feelings, it is not common that humans react on them very often. Things such as empathy or common sense keep us from doing something that we will regret later on, or releasing our primitive instincts. Werewolves were created to represent what humans won't do. They release the inner beast, causing as much damage and hurting as many people as they physically can. A more modern day example of the werewolf could be dated back to the early 1500s. During this time, there was a major spike in the belief of werewolf activity. This was also at a time where there was a large amount of serial killers running rampant on the streets. People would believe that serial killers were actually werewolves, even getting one or two to confess to it in trial. Well, werewolves are mythical creatures, so how did people start to believe that they were actually real? Well, there are certain conditions that are very rare, but if combined, can make a regular human seem like a real werewolf. Things like rabies, which cause people to go insane and lose control at the bite of a wild animal. Or hyperdichrosis, sorry if I mispronounced that, which is a rare genetic disorder causing people to gain excessive amounts of hair. The most important thing, though, is that people believe that serial killers were the same as werewolves, which goes right in line with the thinking that werewolves are the beastly actions of anyday humans, that it could be anyone doing. Okay, so now that we know more about what werewolves stand for, I'm sure a few of you are still very confused as to why I believe they are good for our society, as they seem to be nothing but trouble and harm. Well, for me, I am a very firm believer in the idea that past actions and experiences are the best way to move forward. Basically just trial and error. I don't think I need to explain to people that serial killers are bad, that werewolves are bad, that hurting people is bad. The actions with intent of harming others are not good. However, if serial killers were not a thing, would our world necessarily be safer? I actually do not think that if serial killers were not a thing, our world would be safer. It is only a matter of time before somebody feels the urge to take another person's life. It's going to happen. If there were no records of people who have taken lives, then they wouldn't think twice. They wouldn't think about the repercussions or punishments. Now, I believe the same concept applies to werewolves. If there were no myths or stories about the creature, people would be more likely to release the beast inside of them. They would be more likely to give in to their rage. People do not want to be labeled as monsters. They will avoid actions that would label them as such. I believe that we have developed into a mostly peaceful group of people. If tales about creatures like werewolves weren't told, though, then who knows what could have happened. Maybe our world today could be every man for himself, and nowhere would be safe.